In the high-stakes world of Formula One racing, drivers push themselves and their cars to the limits. As they navigate risky turns and blistering straightaways, the potential for disaster lurks around every corner. Throughout Formula One's history, the biggest racing crashes have left unforgettable marks on the memories of fans and drivers alike. From Ayrton Senna's tragic 1994 crash to Jos Verstappen's miraculous fire escape in 1994, these heart-stopping incidents serve as sobering reminders that with great speed comes great risk. So join us as we dive into the most unforgettable and harrowing crashes that have shaped the world of Formula One. The 1976 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring circuit was a day that would forever be etched in the memory of Niki Lauda. It was a day that changed his life and the face of Formula One's safety. As the drivers lined up on the grid, Lauda was the fastest man on the track, but he was also a vocal critic of the unsafe conditions. The rain-soaked circuit was a ticking time bomb, waiting to unleash its fury on the unsuspecting drivers. Lauda pleaded with his fellow drivers to abandon the race, but his warnings fell on deaf ears. As the race began, Lauda's worst fears were realized. At the notorious Bergwerk corner, his Ferrari lost traction on the wet surface, careening off the track and into the wall. The crash was devastating. Lauda's car exploded into a fireball, trapping him inside as flames engulfed his body. The Austrian driver suffered severe burns to his head and hands, while also inhaling the scorching smoke. He was rushed to the hospital, slipped into a coma, and was even given his last rites. But Lauda, who was always a fighter, refused to surrender. He survived, but the crash left him with physical and emotional scars that would take years to heal. The crash became a wake-up call for the F1 community, highlighting the need for improved safety measures. Lauda's near-death experience led to a major overhaul of safety procedures, including the introduction of fireproof suits, helmets, and improved crash barriers. However, even with all these safety procedures, a similar fire incident would happen to another Formula One driver. The 1994 German Grand Prix at Hockenheim was a tragedy waiting to happen. Jos Verstappen, father of current F1 star Max Verstappen, drove for the Benetton team when disaster struck. On lap 15, Verstappen pulled into the pits for a routine stop, but what happened next would change his life forever. As the fuel hose was inserted into the car, a sudden surge of fuel sprayed out, engulfing the hot engine and igniting a massive fireball. Verstappen was trapped, surrounded by flames that seemed to engulf everything in their path. The pit crew sprang into action, but the intensity of the fire was overwhelming. Verstappen's car erupted into a blazing inferno, with flames licking at his helmet and suit. The air filled with thick smoke, making it nearly impossible to see or breathe. It was a desperate situation, with Verstappen's life hanging in the balance. Miraculously, the pit crew managed to pull him from the wreckage, but not before he suffered minor burns to his nose and foot. The incident served as a wake-up call for the F1 community, highlighting the dangers of pit stop refueling. It led to a major overhaul of safety procedures, with the FIA introducing new regulations to prevent similar disasters, and refueling during pit stops was eventually banned in 2010. Thanks to the FIA's evolving safety guidelines, the next Formula One driver would later survive a deadly crash that sent his car flying like never before. Fernando Alonso's frightening crash at the 2016 Australian Grand Prix remains one of the most memorable incidents in recent Formula One history. The two-time world champion's ordeal started during the race's opening stages, as he attempted to overtake Esteban Gutierrez in his McLaren MP 431. As Alonso approached Turn 3 at the Albert Park circuit, he attempted to pass Gutierrez on the inside, but Gutierrez suddenly slowed, catching Alonso off guard. The unexpected change in speed caused Alonso's McLaren to clip the rear of Gutierrez's Haas VF16, sending Alonso's car spiraling out of control. The impact launched Alonso into the air, flipping his car violently as it flew over the gravel trap and smashed into the track's barrier. Spectators and fellow drivers held their breath as Alonso's McLaren came to rest upside down, its sleek form reduced to a crumpled wreck. Miraculously, the advanced safety features of Alonso's car, along with his instincts and experience, allowed him to emerge from the terrifying incident relatively unhurt. Despite the severity of the crash, which registered a peak G-force of 46 G, Alonso was able to free himself from the wreckage and walk away with only minor injuries. However, not all drivers were as fortunate. Before the FIA made life-saving upgrades to their safety guidelines, some had already lost their lives on the track. This takes us back to the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, a weekend that would change the face of Formula One forever. On Saturday, April 30th, 1994, Roland Ratzenberger, an Austrian driver with only 3 F1 starts under his belt, crashed his Simtek car into a wall at 195.7 miles per hour during qualifying. The impact was catastrophic, and Ratzenberger succumbed to his injuries, becoming the first driver to lose his life in a Formula One event since 1982. The incident sent shockwaves through the paddock, with many drivers visibly shaken by the tragedy. In fact, 3-time world champion Ayrton Senna, who was widely regarded as one of the most talented drivers in Formula One history, was deeply affected by Ratzenberger's passing and reportedly considered withdrawing from the race. Despite his reservations, Senna ultimately decided to compete, hoping to honor Ratzenberger's memory with a strong performance. But fate had other plans. On lap 7, Senna's Williams car lost control at the Tamburello corner, hurtling into an exposed concrete barrier at 192 miles per hour. The impact was devastating, and Senna succumbed to his injuries, passing away the next day. This double tragedy sparked a chain reaction of safety reforms in Formula One. The FIA, led by Max Mosley, implemented a raft of changes aimed at minimizing the risk of serious injury or death. These included the mandatory use of tire barriers, improved crash testing, and the introduction of wheel tethers to prevent wheels from becoming detached during an accident. Even with this development, no rule said you couldn't crash into your teammates to stop them from overtaking you, as shown in the next crash between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. The rivalry between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg during their time as Mercedes teammates captivated Formula One fans and left an unforgettable mark on the sport's history. As childhood friends, their relationship became increasingly fraught as they found themselves vying for dominance within the same team. This tension reached a boiling point during the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix, where a dramatic crash unfolded on the opening lap. As the race began, Hamilton and Rosberg raced side by side into the first turn, with Hamilton on the inside and Rosberg on the outside. Rosberg appeared to have the advantage, but Hamilton refused to yield, and their cars made contact. The collision sent both drivers careening off the track and into the gravel, their once promising race now in shambles. This incident not only strained the already fragile relationship between the two talented drivers, but also caught the attention of their Mercedes team. The team even threatened to terminate both drivers' contracts if a similar situation occurred again. The crash and its aftermath symbolized a fractured friendship, with the once peaceful duo now pitted against each other in a bitter feud that would ultimately shape the course of their respective careers. While both drivers survived the car crash unharmed, the same can't be said for our next driver. French racing driver Jules Bianchi's devastating crash during the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix is a powerful reminder of the inherent risks in motorsport. The accident, which occurred under unsafe conditions at Suzuka Circuit, ultimately claimed Bianchi's life and prompted significant changes within Formula One to enhance driver safety. As heavy rain descended upon the track, German driver Adrian Sutil lost control of his car at Suzuka's challenging Dunlop curve, spinning off the circuit and crashing into the barriers. With Sutil's stricken vehicle requiring recovery, a 500-kilogram crane was dispatched to remove it from the track. Unknown to Bianchi, the worsening weather conditions and the presence of the crane on the circuit would conspire to bring about his downfall. As he navigated the same curve that had caught out Sutil just a lap earlier, Bianchi's Marussia MZR-03 slid off the wet surface, careening into the heavy recovery vehicle at a speed of over 70 miles per hour. The force of the impact was immense, leaving Bianchi with severe head injuries that would ultimately prove fatal. Despite the best efforts of medical personnel and the outpouring of support from fans and the racing community, Jules Bianchi succumbed to his injuries in July 2015, becoming the first Formula One driver to lose their life as a result of a racing incident since Ayrton Senna in 1994. In the aftermath of this tragedy, the FIA undertook a comprehensive review of safety protocols within Formula One. Key changes implemented in response to Bianchi's accident included the 4-hour rule, which mandates that races held during daylight hours must take place at least 4 hours before sunset. This measure sought to minimize the risk of accidents occurring in low-light conditions, which had been a contributing factor in Bianchi's crash. The FIA also made significant modifications to track drainage systems and revised its procedures for the deployment of emergency vehicles during races. These changes aim to reduce the risk of vehicles losing control on wet surfaces and minimize the potential for collisions between race cars and recovery vehicles. Now tell us, which of these crashes do you think was the worst? Are there any other major crashes we missed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.